Hello and welcome to my oral presentation on emergency management business contingency programs in the private sector. This is me. I am a senior majoring in interdisciplinary social sciences, and you'll see that my secondary concentration is in public administration. So, what is a business contingency plan? A contingency plan is a process that prepares an organization to respond reasonably to an unplanned event. There are 5 key concepts that I'm going to go over. They are the business continuity recovery plan, the continuation of operations plan, the crisis management plan, the communications plan, and the disaster recovery plan. The purpose of a business continuity plan is to keep operating as a business during and or after a disaster and crisis. Different parts of the business continuity plan can include an emergency contact list of employees, vendors, associates, customers, and any other key players and contacts that you have in your office. It should also state what policies and procedures change as a result of a disaster and/or crisis. The purpose of a business recovery plan is to restore normal business operations once a business continuity plan has been activated and is no longer necessary. What must be done to get back to normal operating procedures? An example of a business continuity plan is in my office. I deal with QuickBooks, and I go in, I type in who I'm going to make a check out to, and it put in a check in the printer and it prints out. And if there was an emergency and I don't have access to QuickBooks at home, I would have to handwrite those checks. So that would be an example of the business continuity plan, would be me handwriting the checks until we can get back to normal business operating procedure, which is me putting the checks in the printer and printing them out and going in and typing the information in QuickBooks. The continuation of operations ensures the performance of essential functions during a crisis or a disaster. Every company should have a continuation of operations plan, which is also known as COOP. However, upon my studying and getting information for this presentation, I found that in the private sector, not many people have a continuation of operations plan. It is much more common in a government sector than it is in the private sector. I believe a lot of people have the adage of, well, it hasn't happened and it's been this many years, so if it hadn't happened by now, it's not going to happen. Many people say that all the time, and disaster strikes. You never know when it's going to be. You never know how, when, where, why. So it's always better to have it and not use it than to not have it and need it. One of the biggest critical components of COOP is telecommuting. Telecommuting is giving your employees an ability to communicate with each other and the outside world. And one of the biggest things with telecommuting is not only should you have access to be able to telecommunicate during a disaster, you should also be familiar with telecommunicating and how it works. So companies should allow employees to telecommute once or twice a month or so, just so they can be familiar with how they work out of their home or out of another place besides where they're working every day, the office, just so that when disaster strikes, they're familiar, they're ready, they know what what to expect, what they can do, etc. Crisis management plan identifies the people responsible for managing a crisis for the business. This is not the same person that makes the business decision. It is just the person that makes sure the plan is going as it's supposed to. The communications plan is the method at which information is relayed. Great example here is the FSU communications plan. We all get the text alerts frequently when we have the tornado here in Tallahassee. That's very, very uncommon for this area, but FSU had that plan. They activated it. Text alerts went out. I got my text messages my text message at work before the Weather Channel even announced the warning. So kudos to FSU for that. I believe that's great. City of Tallahassee has a Twitter feed that they use for when we have really bad storms and there's power outages and stuff. Some people can still get on their cell phones and get on Twitter, and they can see where there's downed trees, where there's flooded roads and stuff. So those are examples of communication plans. And then you have your disaster recovery plan, which is simply how do you recover your work? Where do you store your data, and how do you retrieve the data once the disaster has been declared?